Good morning. I am Dr. Janice Jones, one of the co-chairs for the University of Michigan's 36th Annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Keynote Lecture. It is my honor to welcome you to this morning's celebration of the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. King. While we were hopeful that this year's symposium would be able to return to its traditional in-person format, I would like to personally thank you for your virtual presence this morning. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank our performers for their inspiring rendition of Three Dream Portraits, poems written by Langston Hughes and set to music by Margaret Bonds. More information of these artists can be found in the Memorial Keynote Lecture program. The MLK Symposium at the University of Michigan represents one of the largest celebrations of its kind happening anywhere in the country this year. In addition to today's program, the university will host more than 40 virtual events throughout January and into February. I invite you to participate in as many as possible. The theme for this year's MLK celebration is This is America. The theme utilizes history, popular culture, and present-day events to explore two contrasting portraits of America. One portrait focuses on our country's ideas and a somewhat idealized sense of who we are. The other portrait focuses on the harsh realities that far too many of us have faced and experienced in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the spirit of Dr. King, this year's theme calls upon us all to fully embrace those uniquely American ideas that we as a country have espoused and sometimes upheld for many of us over these past 250 years as the vision of what we can and must become for all of us. At the same time, we must also openly acknowledge and atone for the bitter truths of what America has too often been, for far too many, for far too long. Our hopes for a prosperous future lies in the reconciliation of these two truths of what America is and has been. We cannot become our best selves until we also deal with our worst selves.
Good morning. Today, we are honoring the principles and the commitment of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His legacy is a powerful one, and one that continually inspires us to work toward justice and equality. We will always strive as a university to be welcoming and a true reflection of the world around us. The academic excellence of our university is built on a foundation of diverse people and their experiences. It's just that simple. The more committed we are to each other as a genuine community, one that celebrates all of its members and their different histories, the stronger we are as a university dedicated to improving society. Our university has made great strides toward building a campus that embraces all staff, faculty, and students. And we have much more work to do before we can say we are a truly just institution. I want to affirm the importance of and the need for our next Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan, DEI 2.0. The time is always right to do what is right. Those are Dr. King's words, and they embody our mission. We will always work to open our doors to all and provide an engaging, supportive, and inclusive environment. Anything less is not Michigan. I look forward to working together as we move ahead.
Buju Gitawe Nigamban and Dishnakas, Cherokee Choctaw Indao, Maingan Dodem, Wawa Atanong and Donjaba. My name is Joe Riley. My Anishinaabe name means the one who sings around. I'm Cherokee and Choctaw. I'm also Italian and Irish. and I belong to the Wolf Clan, and I live in Detroit, Anishinaabe Aki, the land of the people of the three fires. And I'm very honored to be part of this Martin Luther King Day Symposium. And say Chi-miigwech, thank you very much to Gloria Taylor and her team at the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives for having us. We're offering this song, Breathing, and it was inspired by one of my spiritual teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk and was a friend to Dr. King and shares Dr. King's vision for the beloved community. And so I invite you in this song to sing with us, to breathe with us, and to embody this beloved community that includes us all. We say, breathing in, I am alive right here. Breathing out, my mind is clear. Breathing in, my body is at ease. Breathing out, I am at peace. Let us enjoy our breathing together. Breathing in, I am alive right here. Breathing out, my mind is clear. Breathing in, my body is at ease. Breathing out, I am at peace. Breathing. Empty out your pockets, no enlightenment here. Just a pair of brown eyes and some meditation gear. It's clear, but we are something much more than what's sold on TV or bought in a store. We are stores of seeds, deep and wise. We are all of the oceans. Just look in your eyes, see the vastness of the sea, all the elements that be flowing through you and me. Let go and be free and breathe. Breathing in, I am alive right here. Breathing out, my mind is clear. Breathing in, my body is at ease. Breathing out, I am at peace. Breathing. Be free of our perceptions, so many misconceptions and wrong notions. Didn't you hear we are all of the oceans, the waves, the rocks, and the clouds? We are the water droplets gently falling down and returning to the sky. I'm learning to ask why. We're yearning just to try to breathe. Breathing in, I am alive right here. Breathing out, my mind is clear. Breathing in, my body is at ease. Breathing out, I am at peace. Breathing. And there are so many reasons to be happy. And there are so many reasons to give thanks. And there are so many reasons to be happy, to give praise, to give praise. I'm sitting in my room, I'm sweeping with my broom, I'm dancing with the moon. I will be dreaming soon, but for now I'm wide awake, sitting still like a lake with some wild rice growing. It's really nice knowing who I really am, who we really are. Sometimes I can't forget when I'm driving in my car. It's time to pull over, didn't go very far. Try walking on the earth, you might think that sounds bizarre. I think it's rather funny to let go of my money and be one with the energy that flows in me and around me. And so I just surround me with flowers and poetry, beautiful verses. So when my mind disperses, I remember we've rehearsed this to not get caught in the cycle of birth and death. I really don't know about that, so I'll just follow my breath, follow my breath, follow your breath with me. Breathing in, I am alive right here. Breathing out, my mind is clear. Breathing in, my body is at ease. Breathing out, I am at peace. Beloved community, may we continue to breathe in peace, love, and unity. Each one of us healing. Let us feel our feelings, sing our songs, and remember we all belong.
Good morning. My name is Rashad Ritchie, and I'm a current junior studying international studies and music. It is a pleasure for me to introduce our esteemed keynote speakers, Ms. Maria Hinojosa and Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Ms. Maria de Lourdes Hinojosa Ojeda is a Mexican-American journalist. She is the anchor and executive producer of Latino USA on National Public Radio, a public radio show devoted to Latino issues. She's also the founder, president, and CEO of Futuro Media Group, which produces the show. In 2018, she was a fellow at Shorenstein Center at the Harvard Kennedy School and is a frequent speaker across the country. With a career spanning of 30 years, she has informed millions. Ms. Hinojosa has won numerous awards and honors for her work. Other recognition includes the Robert F. Kennedy Journalism Award for reporting on the disadvantaged, the National Association of Hispanic Journalists Radio Award, and the New York Society of Professional Journalists Deadline Award. Ms. Hinojosa is the recipient of 4 Emmy Awards for her work for covering topics such as taxing the poor and the plight of the lower class in Alabama. She was named among the top 25 Latinos in contemporary American culture. In addition to Ms. Hinojosa's awards, she's also the author of 4 books, including her most recent book, Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America. Dr. Rashad Ritchie is a university professor, lecturer, Emmy-nominated broadcaster, and political and social analyst. Dr. Ritchie earned his Bachelor's of Arts in Religious Studies and Master's of Business Administration from Beulah Heights University, PhD from Schofield Graduate School, and completed his second doctoral degree at Clark Atlanta University. Nationally, Dr. Ritchie is a television news anchor for Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, which airs on multiple cable outlets with viewership averaging 1.3 million daily. Prior to becoming the president of Rolling Out magazine in 2021, he served as chief editor-at-large and senior writer. Currently, Dr. Ritchie serves on the board of directors for the Piedmont Atlanta Hospital and Children's Rights, a policy and legal advocacy organization dedicated to the rights of children. He was also awarded the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award by President Barack Obama for his philanthropic endeavors. Thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoy.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's so great to be here with you, and I'm so looking forward to our conversation. And mostly, I just want to let you know, I'm really thrilled that you're here with me. I know that you're someplace that looks a little bit different than this. And if you're wondering where I am, I'm in the Dominican Republic. I'm in Punta Cana. I'm in my home, which actually is the result. We ended up actually building this home as a result of September 11th. So as the saying goes, in Mexican Spanish, one of my favorite sayings, no hay mal que por bien no venga. There is no bad from which good cannot come. So I want to talk a little bit about that because we are living in a very particular moment in history. And for me, this particular event of commemorating and bringing alive Dr. Martin Luther King in all of us and in the things that we do is incredibly important to me. And that's because he was alive when I was alive. Like, I got a chance to see him, when I was a little kid, and whatever evening news I was able to see. It's the only news that we had, right? And so for me, he was very much alive. And the context that I was thinking about my discussion with you tonight is centered around this particular moment in history when, as a young Mexican immigrant little girl, because I was a very little girl, feeling invisible, growing up on the south side of Chicago in a community known as Hyde Park, and feeling that thing that we feel if you are not white in the United States, and if you are white and of the poor, if you're poor or struggling financially, you too may experience this. But this notion of just not really having a place in this country, a lot of it had to do with invisibility in the 1960s and 70s around Mexican immigrants. It was mostly a narrative of invisibility, not really present. And then Martin Luther King is on the picture. And I'm too little now. I'm fascinated by knowing the political dynamics and the fact that he was really hated and despised at the moment. He is our American hero. But in the moment, he was very problematic, and the media treated him not well. And there was a lot of internal conversation about the tactics that he was proposing, as you know. And he was a human being who made mistakes, right? Because he didn't have a roadmap. Everybody thinks, well, Dr. Martin Luther King, he knew exactly what he was doing. No, he's like you and me. He's figuring it out. We don't have roadmaps. I just wrote in my weekly newsletter about not believing in resolutions, but having a kind of idea of what I want to do in a year, thinking about things and having a bit of a roadmap. But Dr. Martin Luther King was like us. He was finding his way. And so when I, as an invisible Mexican immigrant, hear Dr. Martin Luther King speak, it changed everything for me. I mean, it literally changed everything. And this is before Instagram, before Twitter, before TikTok, before all of it, right? But I was able to see that message, his message, more than once. And I remember just saying, well, because I wasn't an American citizen, right? I had a green card. I didn't really know what that was, but I knew I wasn't an American. And I just remember saying, well, I can be part of Dr. Martin Luther King's America. He makes me feel like I can be part of this country, of his country. And for a little kid that changes everything. That just like, it makes you present, it makes you visible. And when you feel visible, you feel empowered, right? And then you begin to believe in your own power slowly, right? But from there, of course, we were witnessing what was happening in the battle for equal rights and civil rights in the United States. And as Mexican immigrants, we had to make decisions about where we stood. And it was a historical moment, much like the same one that you are living in right now, right? Where we are saying very clearly, in my family of Mexicans, right, who we lived in a Black community on the South Side, but my family still also was raised in Mexico, where there is anti-Blackness because of a lot of Hollywood films and American narratives, and also a complicated history of Mexico and Blackness. But the point is that even within that context, my parents understood. They were on the side of Dr. Martin Luther King and what he stood for. It was clear. Like for many immigrants, it is today, the clarity of watching and witnessing the murder of George Floyd and being able to understand, what side are you on? We stand for the movement for Black lives, which in my view began in the United States the day the first enslaved person was brought here, first enslaved Black person was brought here. I don't use the term slave. These are enslaved people. They are people first who were then enslaved. And to me, slavery is international, corporatized, government-supported human trafficking. And descendants of enslaved people should actually be seen also as victims of forced human trafficking endorsed by the US government. For context, if slavery was the original sin, the first sin was genocide. So now we begin to have a larger context. We begin to understand that if indigenous lives didn't matter, genocide, Black lives, enslaved people, didn't matter, then immigrant lives don't matter. Asian lives don't matter. Latino and Latina lives don't matter. Muslim lives don't matter. Trans lives don't matter. Queer lives don't matter. There's a through line to all of that. There is a through line. Now, for me, what we have lived through, if I was experiencing invisibility, my raison d'etre, what I do, what I have done, is to fight for visibility. First, as a journalist, I don't know if you can hear the dogs barking, but there are dogs barking because sometimes, we're recording this live and I've kind of got an indoor-outdoor house here. So sorry about the dogs barking. But the point is that I do the work that I do as a journalist to fight for visibility. The seeds were planted in me to understand that if I experienced invisibility at an early age, then I wanted to fight against that. And the work that I do now as a journalist who runs her own media company is about visibility. And to me, visibility means empowerment, right? Because then you see yourself reflected on national media. That's why it's so important what Dr. Rashad Ritchie does. Because seeing people like us on camera, you say, I can do that too. I can do that too. The same way that seeing Dr. Martin Luther King said to me, you are human. I see you. I really was convinced that Dr. Martin Luther King saw me because nobody else did. Now, that was living through a period of time when leaders were assassinated. We are living through a different period of time right now. We are living, and you as young people are living through something we could have never imagined, right? A pandemic. So this is an incredibly difficult time, personally challenging, devastating. I'm able to work and do what I do because I'm a journalist and I have that privilege, but I understand, and I'm much older, right? And I'm a survivor of COVID. And so for me, it's easy to, not easy, but I center gratitude every day. But I understand for many people and for many young people, this is, los golpes son muy duros. These are very heavy blows. And so I want to commend you, as I say to my own students. I'm a professor at my alma mater at Barnard College at Columbia University. And I say to my students, you have learned so much over the past 2 years about your own capacity to find a way to be in college in the midst of all of this. And hopefully to have solidarity with the ones who are still feeling challenged. And there are many of us. So for me, there's a lot of centering of gratitude. And that's why I'm so grateful to be able to speak with you in honor of somebody who is so important to me, so much alive for me, still alive for me. And one of the things that I learned from Martin Luther King was also to own the power of my own voice, right? To own my own story. And so I'm going to tell you very briefly, before we hear from Dr. Ritchie, about why it's important in these moments to think about gathering your own story, your family's story. And it's not so much about the genealogy of that. By the way, I had that done with finding your roots, and it's amazing. It's incredible. But that's not what I'm talking about. That's important, but I'm talking about how did we end up where we are now, where you are now. I teach classes on writing and trauma. I teach classes that deal with immigration and reporting. And so I'm emphatic about our young people, as well as people my age, in finding our stories, because in that moment, so many things can be revealed to you about who you are and why you do what you do. And if you don't do this now, it's okay, but put it in the to-do thing. Talk to grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, uncle, mother, father. So I knew that there had something had happened on my arrival to this country. My father was a Mexican nerd from Tampico, Tamaulipas, who in the 1950s, I guess the dream was planted in the 1940s. He was like, I want to help to create something that will help people who are deaf, who want to hear. I want to create that for them. So basically, my dad probably was seen like a crazy person, but he got his medical degree, became a medical doctor, and then was hired by the University of Chicago, and in the end, helped to create the cochlear implant for people who are deaf who want the opportunity to hear. They can use the cochlear implant. May my father rest in peace. Dad comes to the University of Chicago 6 months earlier, and then we came by plane with privilege, with green cards, from Mexico City. My mom with the 4 kids, including me. I was the baby. I was a baby in her arms. My sister was 7, and my 2 brothers in the middle. And we, when I was writing my first memoir, something had happened there, in the arrival, in the airport. But it was only when the story broke under the Trump administration, when a whistleblower recorded the voices of the children, the babies, the toddlers, crying after they had been forcibly taken from their family members, their mothers or fathers or aunts or uncles, and were put in cages. And we all heard the voices of them crying. And it was so shocking. And in the midst of that, my mother, now in her 80s, called me, crying. And I said, Mom, ¿qué pasó? And she said, I'm what happened to the kids? It's just so upsetting. I was like, I know, it's very upsetting. She's like, no, you don't understand. This was me. And I was like, Mom, what? And that's when she said, this almost happened to you. I was almost one of those mothers. You were almost one of those babies. They tried to take you from me. And what happened was that when we arrived in the airport and we had to go through immigration in Dallas, Texas, before catching our flight to Chicago, I had a rash on my skin. And Mexicans in the state of Texas, still by law until 1964, we were considered dirty. Hence the slur against Mexicans. You put that other word there, right? So I had a rash, and the immigration agent looked at me and said, "You're sick. You need to be quarantined," and said to my mom, "Don't worry. You go ahead up to Chicago with your 3 other kids. We'll just keep the baby here in the airport." And you know what? I thought that that would have been like a random thing that happened. And then you realize, no. Why is it important that we find our stories and make the connections? Because in this country, I am but a part of a long history where babies and children are taken. Indigenous babies and children were taken from their families. Black, African babies and children were taken from their families. And so immigrant children, Mexican children, and now Central American children and children of any race that end up at the border potentially taken. There are thousands still being held in those cages right now under this administration. So to get back to Dr. Martin Luther King, do your research, understand your part of American history. Understand that we have a long history of struggle ahead of us, right? And that right now, at least for immigrants, very clearly, and many of them are Black. So this is a large issue. There is no due process. There is no visibility. In fact, right now, immigrants, Latinos and Latinas, are part of the fastest growing population in our country, which is people behind bars, one of the fastest growing populations. Behind prison bars, jail bars, immigration and detention, immigrant detention camp bars. So, and I know that Dr. Ritchie will understand exactly this connection. People say, "Oh, Maria, you know, you're so obsessed with the issue of immigrants." It's like, well, actually, now that I understood my arrival story to this country, I understood what my obsession was. It was because of this deep trauma that my body experienced where I was almost taken from my mom, right? But it's about making the connections. It's about making the connections. And so people say, "Oh, you're obsessed with immigrants." And it's like, no, actually, I'm obsessed with the capacity of this country and its inhumanity towards immigrants of every race. That's what my obsession is. And it's an obsession that I got from witnessing the work of Dr. Martin Luther King and living through his assassination and pulling that through to the murder of George Floyd, so that we understand the large arc of injustice that we are connected to. And I know that Dr. Ritchie and I both feel like what we want to instill in you is your own sense of power. Whatever it may be, this country's democracy is resting on you. And I say that with all of the weight because we need you. And I am so thankful that Dr. Rashad Ritchie is here in the house, and I'm so looking forward to his comments.
Maria, that was an amazing presentation. Very thankful for your advocacy and leadership over the years. The math ain't adding up. I say that to my college students here in Georgia. No, I'm not a math professor. I'm a social science professor. And I tell my students to always think this way. The math ain't adding up when something doesn't make sense. So I'm going to give some highlights to what that social construct. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968. However, for the vast majority of Americans, they only know about Dr. King until 1964, because after his assassination, there was an intentional curation of his speeches, his interviews, and his writings up until 1964. And they wanted that to be the promotion, the proclamation of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because what he said after 1964 was considered radical or too radical for the mainstream. And there was an intentional push to make the message of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. more digestible to the average American. Now, some can debate if that was proper or improper. That debate could go on for days, for years, really. But it's a reality. The reality is, after 1964, Dr. King said that America was more racist than he ever believed. The reality is, after 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King started talking about it's one thing to sit at a restaurant where you choose, but it's another thing to own it. He started talking about redlining and discriminatory practices in housing. He also talked about the necessity of America having a massive economic shift in order to do right by its Black citizens. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., during his time among us, had a 6% approval rating with white Americans. That was an NBC poll done in the 60s. You got to think about it. Today, his approval rating is well over 90%. Democrats, Republicans, people that are non-political, they cite the work and the ideology of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Many of them misquote him. Many of them take it out of context, what he said and what he means. 6% of Americans were for. He had an approval rating of only 6%. The vast majority of Americans were against him. So let me highlight what America is. When we say this is America, what is America? America is a massive social experiment that continues every day. Massive. And we're all part of that experiment. Let me break down a marketing sentiment. What we're struggling for in America, and you see this through the reality of bias and prejudice, racism, etc. What we're struggling to do is to find ourselves in the picture of America. If you feel disconnected and disenfranchised from the United States, it's because you do not see yourself in the American framework. It's like this. If you take a picture and you take a picture with 9 friends and you're the 10th friend in the picture, and the picture looks great. The picture is a remarkable picture, but you don't look your best in the picture. Well, that is a bad picture, because you don't like how you look in that picture, even if 90% of the people in the picture look great. And that is the struggle for equity in the United States of America. And we are constantly saying, no, the picture is just fine because everyone else looks good in the picture. But what about the minority who does not? And that is our great battle. What we fight for and what Dr. King stood for was a policy transition. What is policy? Policy is a contract between the government and the community. I always think of policy in that way. Policy is a contract between the government and the community. What Dr. King fought for was for the country to give a better contract to the community. He wanted a better contract, in particular for Black Americans, but by extension, by connection, to historically marginalized groups. That's why he fought on behalf of organized labor, the Poor People's Campaigns. He wanted people to have equity. Now, granted, he called it equality, and I'm going to break down the differences and show you how Dr. King himself said his fight for equality created mobility and courtesy, but not genuine equality. After 1964, Dr. King was interviewed, and the interview talked about what has happened to the civil rights movement. Remember, he's still in the middle of it, but a lot of people have decided to leave his side. A lot of his supporters, not only in the Black community, but many in the white community, no longer wanted to fight the rest of the movement or the civil rights movement fight with him. Now, why is that? That's because he had defeated, in many ways, some of the very known racists in America, the Bull Connors of the world, the prolific KKK members who were profound and evil of the world. He had defeated many of them, at least as it relates to the media perception. These people were deemed bad people. He was deemed to be on the right side of history. And so many who no longer could see the adversarial personalities of a Bull Connor, could no longer see the faces of the grand wizard of the KKK. They did not want to fight the other fights. They did not want to fight against discriminatory housing. They did not want to fight for equal access and inclusion in economic arenas. They did not want to fight for integrated school systems. They wanted to fight big, bad boogeymen. And when you no longer had those characters, they started to leave the movement connected to Dr. King. All of this is fact and all of this is verifiable. Dr. King did not want simply the freedom of mobility. Let me explain this deeper. The Civil Rights Bill and the variations of civil rights bills created an acceptance that said Black people are now able to shop where white people shop. There was a massive movement by multiple multinational companies and national companies that did business in America. They said this is the right thing to do. We need to make sure that Black dollars can come to our establishment. Well, this was not because of their social morality. This was because of their bottom line, their profitability. They wanted a way to get Black dollars into their white establishments. And the Civil Rights Bill helped do that. Now, Dr. King would tell you that for many, the Civil Rights Bill, he said this after 1964, that for many, the Civil Rights Bill transitioned Black dollars into white establishments. He said this: it's not curated in the promotion of Dr. King because that was not the message they wanted to present. But Dr. King said on the record that civil rights was good because it created mobility, opportunity. But it's another thing when you talk about movement, but you don't talk about ownership, equity in the marketplace, the ability to be part of the ecosystem of America. And that is the great issue. The great issue is, how can groups that are considered to be minority groups see themselves in the ecosystem, not only of economy, but social progress, justice systems working the way they should, non-discriminatory policies in business? How do we see ourselves in that ecosystem of the United States of America? And Dr. King wanted to see that. And Dr. King, and I'm glad Maria shared this, Dr. King was a man, was a person, was a human being who was continuing to grow as he continued to journey, just like me, just like you. He had a different point of view from 1964 than he had in 1968. He had a different point of view in 1964 than he had in 1960. But we have cherry-picked what we would like Dr. King to be. Dr. King was called radical. They called him a communist. They said he was a socialist. The same people, the same individuals who called him that were simply adversarial to a policy change in America. I'm going to give you an example of continued racism in this country. When I was hired at CBS News Atlanta, and I still work at CBS News Atlanta, there was a story that came to my desk in Camilla, Georgia. Camilla, Georgia is deep South Georgia. The chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus gave me a call and said, Dr. Ritchie, there's a case in South Georgia where the mayor, who happens to be the first Black male mayor, The mayor is unable to get keys to City Hall. He's unable to get a paycheck. They won't allow him to get paid. And there's a cemetery that separates black dead bodies from white dead bodies at the city-owned cemetery. They have 0 black police officers, 0 black contractors, and the city was over 70% black. Camilla, Georgia. I thought the story was too extreme to be true. So I gave the mayor of Camilla, Georgia, a phone call directly. Not only did he confirm that it was true, he also confirmed some other things that we ended up investigating. So I went to my news director, and this is why you have to be very sure about what you want to do and who you want to be in the advocacy world if that's part of your mission. I went to my news director and I said, Steve, I got to do this story. It's in Camilla, Georgia. We have a black mayor. He's the first to be elected, 70% black, all white city council. They are opposing him because they don't like the fact that he got elected. He can't get his paycheck. They won't give him keys to his office. There are no black police officers. We got to cover this story. This is extreme. And initially, Steve said, you know, Rashad, that's out of our local media market, which it was. It was outside of our media market. And I went back to Steve. And I went back to Steve. And I went back to Steve until Steve said, get a truck, get a cameraman. You have one day. Well, we went to Camilla, Georgia. And I spoke with the mayor. He confirmed everything. I spoke with members of his staff, who he was powerless to fire, by the way, because of a city rule they passed. Members of his staff told me in very certain terms to get the hell up out of their city. When I posed questions about the cemetery being segregated, one black and one white, they said you need to put in a public records request for that information. When I posed questions about, are there any black police officers in the city? The woman at the front desk said, well, we have 1 black police officer in training. They only did that because they knew I was coming. By the time we left that city, the city manager ordered the fence and the separation between the cemetery, 1 black side and 1 white side, to be taken down. And when you saw the cemetery, the black side, or where the black bodies were buried, it was run down, not kept. But on the side where the white bodies were buried, it was heavenly. The math ain't adding up. The city manager ordered for that fence to be taken down. The mayor finally got his first paycheck. They actually ended up hiring 3 black police officers. They started a program to include more minority contracting. And that story got me an Emmy nomination. I wasn't doing it for an award, obviously. The point is, in our advocacy, we have to also be very dogmatic about what we believe and why we think these stories are important. Policies changed because of one story. That entire city has a different policy contract between community and government because of one story. That was the mission of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to transform America by transforming American policies. We are a combination of 3 E's, every single one of us: experience, exposure, and environment. I heard a brother tell me, a black male police officer, he told me that he had never experienced racism in his life. As if the fact that he says he has never experienced racism, that racism must not exist. Be careful of those conversations that create a microcosm to explain away a macrocosm of reality in America. Racism does exist. It is real. Most of us have not been criminally violated. We have not been robbed. That doesn't mean robberies do not take place. The issue of equality versus equity has been front and center in many conversations in this country. And I think some people have intentionally mischaracterized the two. Dr. King once again talked about something called genuine equality. as opposed to equality as it relates to mobility, to the civil rights bill that allows for you to go places. He said, we need genuine equality. That was his way of saying equity, because he explained his genuine equality principle as an equitable principle, because he went on to explain how it's one thing to sit, once again, at a restaurant, but it's another thing to own it. That's an equitable principle. But here's the best way I can summarize the difference between equality and equity. They're not the same. They're not the same. Imagine if there's a football game. Both of the teams are evenly matched. They know the rules. They have trained for this particular game. They know the plays. They have good coaches. The referees are, for the most part, fair. And there are spectators. We will call those spectators the audience. We will call them the media. And everybody's playing hard. And both teams are told all you got to do is score more points than the other in order to win. And the team, let's call it the minority team, they fight hard. They're winning at halftime. They're winning in the third quarter. They're winning in the fourth quarter. And they're winning by 50 points, and there's 1 second left in the game. There's no way that the opposition team can actually win the game. There's no way they can overcome a 50-point lead. It's impossible. But 1 second before the clock runs out, it is then discovered that the other team inherited 51 points before the game even started. That's the difference between equality and equity. All things may look equal, but when you look at what's behind the scenes, you will see massive inequities that contribute to the unequal outcomes that we see in America. Now, what is America? It's what you define it to be. Will we ignore the realities of our systemic and biased structures, or will we work together to deconstruct them, to actually analyze the root causes of them in order to have a more equitable societal construct? Will we promote people over profit? Will we consume products and services that have good corporate social responsibility practices? America is whatever you choose it to be. There's a heavy burden on your shoulders, and it's not fair. What's on your shoulders is not fair. But remember this, every generation is responsible for securing not only their legacy, but the freedoms they enjoy. This is my lecture for today. I look forward to the conversation coming up.
Good morning. My name is Juliana Collado. I am a senior in the Ford School of Public Policy and one of this year's Mlk Symposium student interns. I have the honor of introducing today's moderator, Dr. Patricia Coleman-Burns. Professor Coleman-Burns is a University of Michigan Assistant Professor Emerita of Nursing and Black Studies. Coleman-Burns is a scholar, mentor, and advocate. Throughout her career, she has developed and taught courses focusing on social and political movements, gender and racial identity issues, topics in speech and women's studies, health disparities, and cultural competence. As a lifelong advocate for the right of persons to be free from all forms of oppression and violence, she has served as the co-chairperson of UM's Violence Against Women Task Force and on the executive board of Safe House Center, which provides services for those impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault. She also serves on several advisory committees on diversity, multicultural, and women's issues. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Patricia Coleman-Burns.
Thank you so much. I'm sitting here thinking, in all the many, many years of celebrating the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and as Dr. Ritchie talked about, the movement to make his birthday a national holiday started with John Conyers here in Detroit. And we know that here we are all these many years later. And it's important for us to look at those years between 1964 and 1968 with Dr. King, because that's when he became an enemy of the people, so to speak. And we find ourselves located right there in that space in 2022. And what is that space that we are located in? I'm sitting here in my community, a community that historically was like a sundown town, born in Detroit, but now here in a suburb of Detroit, facing a battle around DEI. So it's almost like the strength of who we are and the reality of having achieved some clarity puts us in a precarious place. Mm-hmm. And so where I want to start is, first, let me just make sure that our two keynote speakers, and you were both, I mean, I have so many notes, it's like, where do we begin here? But let me start by asking each of you, is there anything that you want to interrogate or question of the other speaker? I know you know each other, but you might have heard something that is unique and new to you, and you might want to underscore. So let me open the mic then for you to first start by reacting and reflecting on each other.
Well, since you just spoke most recently, I'll go first. I was just fascinated. I just was like, oh my God, I want to hang out with Rashad all the time. Sorry that I'm just dropping the doctor there, but I'm just so thankful that what we're doing here is that we're adding a layer of complexity for the students, right? That they understand that they have to, do the work of kind of deconstructing what we're saying. So I'm just deeply appreciative, and I'm thrilled to be in conversation with you. And mostly I want to hear more, so I just want to hear more, because we are, and I think it's important also for the students to remember, we're just human beings. Mm-hmm. We're just human beings. And that's one of the reasons why I really like what you do, Rashad, because of course you exude utmost professionalism, but there's such humanity to the work that you do.
I feel the same about you, Maria, and I'm thankful to share this opportunity with you. And something you said really struck me, and I would like you to unpack it more. It was about how the knowledge of your personal experience, which you were too young to remember, and we have a thing in social science called proximity, where if the incident is close to you, or close in time, is more dramatic. But if you tell me about 1,000 people that died 100 years ago, it's not as dramatic to my conscience. But if you told me 1,000 people just died an hour ago, I feel it differently. So I want to ask you this question. When you learned of your history from your mother that connected you to a current dynamic in our government, how did that impact you and your advocacy moving forward?
It was essential to my understanding and to now what I talk about for students. I've just written a young reader's version of my book because I want to go back to, the 8 and 10-year-olds, mm-hmm. because we need them to understand that the things that they have lived through are planting these seeds. Whether they are a seed of curiosity for the children who have that possibility, right? Who have privilege, and there's a seed. They see something unjust, and it plants a seed of curiosity, and then they focus on that. Or for those of us who have lived through a particular injustice. Yeah. But it was like, oh my! And I was in an airport. So I couldn't really, when the call came through, I couldn't really just express everything that was going on. I was just like, I can't believe my mother just said this. And I felt it like, oh my God, that's why immigration is so, you always wondered like, okay, you're an immigrant, but yeah, but, and it was like, there was something so visceral. And that's the same thing that many of the students have. And they're like, why? And we are able to interrogate that, and in this case, interrogate that for Dr. Martin Luther King, right? Because it motivated him to become the person who he is.
That's
So
right.
thank you for asking that question. I do appreciate it.
And so that brings us, I teach students, and parents pay for this great education that they are receiving. And often they are told, we are not sending you to whatever university to be activists. We're sending you to get these degrees. Yet and still, we have an obligation, as each of you have pointed out, to give them the education that is an education rooted in truth and honesty and clarity. So the question I have is, in the midst of the attack against DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, some people use code words like CRT, but in the midst of such efforts to say, well, that's over, this is in, we're teaching hate, how do you respond to that as we look at this is America, and this is the America that is for us to build for the future based on a clear analysis of where we've been?
I think that's a great question. If you don't mind, I would like to opine first. I remind people who are adversarial to the terminology activists or advocates. I remind people that this country was founded by activists. It was an activist movement that created the United States of America. The founding fathers were activists. For those who are a part of my Christian evangelical family, those my brothers and sisters over there, Jesus was an activist. He was an advocate. It doesn't take much to be an activist or advocate. It simply takes disagreement with the status quo and an action to support it. That's what being an activist is. And the truth is, we have allowed others to define the variables, to define the narrative for us, where we are now afraid to utilize these words and the terminology that fits appropriately because we have lost the messaging game. We have allowed messages to be hijacked by those who simply would like to kill the method, so they kill the message in the process. And it has been very effective. The issue with CRT, and I'm glad you brought that up, because really it is a fight against diversity, inclusion in the United States of America. Let's be very clear. And I'm a policy guy. Both of my doctorates are policy based. When you look at all of the laws that were passed in the United States of America that are anti-CRT laws, that's just a fact. You look at the laws. Guess what's not in the bill? The terminology critical race theory. Critical race theory does not exist in the confines of the language of any of these institutional legislative bodies. They are not passing laws to ban the teaching of critical race theory in K through 12 education because it's not taught in K through 12 education. It's an advanced theoretical framework for graduate level studies, in particular law studies. And I'm currently in law school myself. So we learned some of this in our legal studies. But the issue is what's behind it. What's behind it is to stop the acknowledgement of true race history in America, because you can't challenge and you can't change what you fail to acknowledge. And so there's a systematic approach to get this generation of K through 12 students to not even acknowledge that the problem exists, because those are the change agents of the future. And obviously some of that permeates to our collegiate class. They are the change agents of the future. But if they tell you and teach you and indoctrinate you to believe that no problem exists, that no structural racism is real, you will not fight it because you can't acknowledge it. It doesn't exist in your world. And that's one of the great disasters, in my opinion, of what we're trying to fight against. It's amazing how messaging has created a space where facts are very debatable. Let's be clear. We talk about diversity and inclusion because of the data. The data tells us to. There's a conclusive data set, peer review, that says you all need to reverse engineer this because your inequity in outcomes is indicative of a racial pattern. or patterns of racism. So we need to figure this out and deconstruct it. Well, if you're not deconstructing what the science and the data tells you to deconstruct, you are in fact a constructor of it, because it exists and permeates by the silence of good men, women, and others. That's how it exists, because these structures were created from the beginning. We weren't created as a democracy. We were created as a country that said only rich white men could vote. We should all be against that.
Absolutely.
That's how it was created. It wasn't created for everybody. It has matured to a better democracy, but it wasn't created in the democracy that we understand it to be today.
Miss Maria, so in that same vein, what I was so struck by with what you said was to make the decision about where we stand. That's one of the most challenging things about our history in this country of immigration. Isabella Wilkerson talks about caste, how every immigrant group has come and on the backs of Blacks ascended to become identified as white. We know the Supreme Court decisions that were made. So I really wanted you to reemphasize. You talked about the issue of anti-Blackness. You talk about understanding that we can create the world anew. But we have a history of immigrants coming to this country and being told they need to speak American, whatever that meant, get rid of their names, change their food, change their dress. How can we inspire young people who have rich cultures, rich histories, to bring to This Is America that history, that richness, that flavor, so that we can in fact become we the people and not just we the white male who owns property? Can you address that more?
So I think it's all around us, and I want to emphasize in terms of what Dr. Rashad Ritchie was saying, in terms of this country being an activist country, it's also a radical country. It is a deeply radical country, and we have to uplift and hold up. And radical means going to the root of issues, right? Going to the root of things. That's why critical thinking is so important, right? Now, when I think about Detroit, I want to paint this picture because Detroit was one of the last places where I was before the shutdown. We went to do a live recording of our politics show where Rashad has been a guest in the thick. And so I spent some time in the community in Detroit, actually witnessing a lot of good street grilling, okay, sidewalk grilling. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was finding people in Detroit, Mexicans from Detroit, who were talking to me about their ancestors, Mexican ancestors, who were deported from Detroit in the 1930s. Because in the 1930s, again, what we are witnessing, the anti-Black hatred and the anti-immigrant hatred is not new, and the anti-Indigenous hatred is not new. So there was a massive deportation right after the Depression, but when the stock market fell in 1929, there was again, get rid of the immigrants. And immigrants were rounded up, Mexicans, not immigrants. They were Mexicans. Many of them had been living in the United States. Many of them were now American citizens. Certainly the ones that were in Michigan and Detroit had migrated there, but had already been there for at least a decade, if not two. And they were being sent back to Mexico. And being with family members, Mexican family members who are Michiganians, Detroit folk, and still kind of dealing and living with that past trauma. Now, one of the things on the conversation about DEI, and I don't really like the term DEI. I got to be honest with you. I'm not, the terminology stuff is one that we can talk about. As you know, I almost wrote a book called Illegal is Not a Noun. Never use the term illegal to refer to a human being. In my newsroom, we do not use the term minority ever. You'll never hear it on the air, nor the word minority to describe a human being. But the thing for me about diversity, equity, and inclusion is that it still, in some ways, centers white people as having the power. And I'm trying to change that conversation. So, for example, in a newsroom, I have my own newsroom, right? I created Futuro Media because I didn't want to have to consistently get approval from white editors. Rashad knows what I'm talking about, for the stories that I wanted to do, that it needed to be valuable to them. I was like, no, I'll just create my own newsroom. If your newsroom, if your campus, okay, but I talk about newsrooms, right? If it's not representative, you cannot be practicing excellence in journalism, period. So within academia, there has to be a similar kind of, like, if you're not representative in academia, then there's no way that you can actually teach American history properly. Because if our founding fathers and our founding mothers, our indigenous mothers and fathers of this land, if they were teaching the American history classes, it would be a very different story.
Yes.
So I'm no longer into this, like, we're gonna include you. It's not yours. I'm at, like, it's not yours to include. Public media, in my case, public media is not yours to then say we're going to do better in terms of representing. It's like you have to change the mentality, and part of that is deconstructing these things, because, as Rashad said, this is a lot about structural issues. And just to finish up, when you think about the mainstream media, most of it is overwhelmingly run and owned, and the buck stops with white, straight, presenting men of privilege.
And that, this is the question that I'm burning to ask you. So my degrees are in communication, radio, theater, film, rhetoric. And so I pay a lot of attention to journalism. My final question is a question that reflects back to the way in 2018 that journalists, particularly women of color, misogyny, the hatred of Black women, was demonstrated when Black women journalists would raise questions. And so we had a program here at the university, and I asked one of the journalists, well, what do fellow journalists do to support each other when they're being attacked or when they're being maligned? And I conjured up the history of Ida B. Wells Barnett, who in her Red Report presented the data of lynching in the United States. So my final question to you is, how? I mean, I don't even know what the question is. As journalists, what can you do to support each other who are putting out truth and honesty and using the data and centering people? And how do we deal with the misinformation and the lack of support, the invalidation of journalists like yourselves, the insults, the assault? How do you see dealing with that in This Is America?
I think that's a great question. I'm president of Rolling Out. Rolling Out has a magazine and digital and all of that. So we have 2.8 million readers per month. We have a combined social media following of over 500,000. It was important when I was appointed president, it was important that all of the writers were aware that this is a safe space. And this safe space will tell stories from their perspective. Now you have hardline journalism and you have opinion pieces, okay? The reality is all journalism has bias. When I lecture at universities, they don't like me saying that, but all journalism has always had bias. And here's why. Typically in a news story, when I'm on CBS News Atlanta, we have about 2.5 minutes to tell a story. That means that we have to figure out what's important for those 2.5 minutes. Is the story longer than 2.5 minutes? You're damn right it's longer than 2.5 minutes. But I got 2.5 minutes to tell the story. So the only rendering of the story you will get is what I believe or the producer believes is important for that 2.5 minute segment. But that's the reality of all media. On my talk radio platforms, we highlight women in media as a way to get them a larger audience, because when you have a following, those networks, if you work for corporate media, they are less reluctant to do something adversarial to you when you have that following. That's a very practical reality. So I try to help increase their following. So I provide safe space at rolling out. I provide opportunity to increase following because I know what that did for me, and I'm sure it has helped others. And as far as the misinformation is concerned, the misinformation will always be there. You just can't get comfortable in it. I have people call my radio show and say, Doc, why you keep talking about this? Why are you still discussing this? Because the day I stop is the day it becomes normal. And I refuse to allow misinformation and dysfunction and corruption in data to become normative to me. So as long as it's out there, I will approach it as if it is what it is, a lie. And the day I stop is the day it becomes normal. So those are some of the practical things that I do in my arena in order to give space, in particular to Black women in journalism, and also make sure that we fight against the massive misinformation that comes out on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for mentioning my hero, Ida B. Wells. I think one of the things that was really important for me was understanding my role as a journalist. And actually, I don't call myself an activist, because in the world of journalism, it tends to diminish you if you label yourself an activist. So I'm an activist for the truth, is what I would say. But for me, when I read a phenomenal book, it's called News for All the People: The History of Journalists of Color and Resistance in the United States, or something like that. And I realized that the person who I follow in the footsteps of is somebody who is so different than me, Frederick Douglass, right? So Frederick Douglass creates a newspaper. Frederick Douglass, I just read his works over break, and I just loved when he was talking about when he got his hands on the first newspaper, whatever it was, one piece of paper, and it was the news, and he was like, his brain exploded, like, what this is. And that planted a seed in him that he wanted to be a journalist, and he creates the North Star. He's born into slavery and, fights for his freedom. And to me, to know that that is the trajectory of journalism in our country, right? And that I am tied to it, and that Ida B. Wells, the issue of solidarity that you raise is so important, because there was no solidarity for Ida B. Wells. And she died in poverty. And white male journalists said of her work, specifically the work around lynching, they said, Ida, you are such an activist and you are such an un-American person. Why are you writing about lynchings? They're not news. They happen all the time. That was their response. So I see my roots as tied to them. That's how I understand the long haul of why we do what we do. And this this past week last week has been so challenging because of the inability to even name what we live through, which is, I will call it, a perpetual state of attempted coup d'etat. Mm-hmm. I think insurrection is something that I think it gives them too much respect. I think this was a mob of scoundrels, and they were trying to have a coup d'etat, and they don't accept it. And so, as I was pondering what this all means, and also feeling somewhat invisible from the conversation, right? It's like, you know what? That's been the trajectory of my life. If my earliest political consciousness comes from Dr. Martin Luther King, on the positive, on the negative, it's actually George Wallace making me afraid, but on the positive, Dr. King. then the entirety of my life as an American, I became an American citizen in the late 1980s, has been about fighting back. And so when we're like, I'm exhausted, your question about how do we teach them to get a professional degree, get to work, get the job, but also because we have to be able to do multiple things at the same time. We have to be able to fight for our democracy, whether it's registering people to vote, running for the school board, doing whatever it is that you do, us personally, and also getting the job and paying back the loans and, doing that, but, knowing that that's not necessarily the thing that is going to necessarily make you happy. But, there are the golden handcuffs of capitalism, right? And we all are in debt. I can finally say I'm almost out of debt because my kids are, 3 years out of college, almost. But that is our lot in the United States of America and capitalism. And this is precisely what Dr. Martin Luther King was saying. He was also making a deep critique of capitalism.
That's right.
Yes,
So I just want to say to me, it's an honor to make those connections because I don't give up because I think about Frederick Douglass and Ida B. Wells.
I want to thank you both for your original remarks and reflections and for engaging in this conversation. I think it's powerful for young future leaders, current leaders, to hear how we can interrogate these questions, how we can explore them, but how we don't backpedal or be correct, if you will, or censor the thoughts, but work hard to understand what this is America means, what this is America can mean, and what it will mean, ready or not, because we are on our way. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for engaging us
Thank you.
in this wonderful discussion. God bless you.
Thank you. And thank you to Dr. Ritchie. I appreciate so much sharing the stage and to
Same
your
here.
beautiful questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Gregory Thomas, one of the co-chairs of the Mlk Symposium, and I have the honor and privilege of closing out today's program. I hope that you have been as enriched and inspired by today's program as I have been. I want to thank the ensemble of individuals who have made this year's Mlk Symposium and broader celebration possible. This year's Mlk Symposium, as always, was organized by the Mlk Planning Committee, which is comprised of a group of dedicated students, staff, and faculty from across our campus. In addition, the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives have provided major administrative support for the planning process. Our commemoration of Mlk Day provides us with an opportunity to honor the legacy of not only Dr. King, but to honor the legacy of the multitude of individuals who have dedicated themselves to social justice. Most of those names are lost to history. Over the years, we have been fortunate to have many individuals who embodied this dedication to progress and change at the University of Michigan. On New Year's Day, we lost one of those giants. Jim Toy passed away at the age of 91. Jim played a significant role in the establishment of the university's Human Sexuality Office in 1971. That office, which is now the Spectrum Center, was the very first staff center focused on the needs of the LGBTQ+ community on a university campus. Jim worked in the center for 23 years. He also helped to author non-discrimination policies at the University of Michigan, the City of Ann Arbor, and the City of Ypsilanti. Jim's impact and legacy helped advance LGBTQ+ rights in Ann Arbor, across the state of Michigan, and throughout the nation. Fortunately, the university was able to recognize Jim and his legacy with the honorary degree this past December before he passed. While Jim will be remembered for many things, he'll be best remembered for his belief in helping others, drive for equality, and that we are stronger together. Jim's life, like Dr. King's, and so many others, provide us with a blueprint for how to live consequential lives. They recognized wrongs that needed to be remedied. They acted on the wrongs with a combination of compassion and grace for everyone involved, as well as a tenacious determination and an uncompromising resolve for justice. And it's through these life examples that we learn to keep moving forward, push harder, and to know that each and every one of us can make a difference towards a better university, a better nation, and a better world. Again, thank you for your participation in today's Memorial Keynote Lecture. As we continue to encourage you to participate in over 40 lectures, live performances, exhibits, workshops, and community service projects sponsored by academic and non-academic units, student and staff organizations, and community groups. These events can be found on our MLK website. Now, let us conclude today's events, reflecting on both what America has been and what America can be as we listen to Marian Anderson's rendition of My Country 'Tis of Thee, performed on April 9th, 1939 at the Lincoln Memorial after being denied a performance at Constitution Hall because she was colored. More information of this performance can be found in the Memorial Keynote Lecture program. Take care and God bless.
Genius draws no color line. And so it is fitting that Marian Anderson should raise her voice in tribute to the noble Lincoln whom mankind will ever honor. Miss Marian Anderson.